Okay, we're going to start at the Mishnah and in Beis Amid Beis, correct? Naftali, that's where we're holding, right? Mishnah and in Beis Amid Beis.
I had to leave at 7:30 yesterday. I don't know.
Okay, I think that's where we're holding. Okay, we thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. It's chassav learning we should have the Beis Hamikdash, and it should be a refuah shlema for anyone that needs. And Nishmas, tunnels have been seen. Okay, the hostages. Right, Israel. Okay, the Mishnah starts like this. Mitzvah Sanhedrin. The command to carry out the capital punishment by the sword. They would chop a person's head off, like the way they do in the movies, right? Right, how the kingdom does it. That's how it means, like way the government would do it. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Nivel hulai." This is a disgrace. To chop him, his body collapses and his head goes flying, and that's not the proper way to do it. They put his head on a block and they chop it off with a heavy axe, like the way that you would see in a butcher shop. Amrulai, they send him back. That's even worse. Well, I guess he can't get any. Everything here is going to be nivel. The question is, like, how nivel is it? How it's not going to be on a surgeon's table. We'll see in the Gemara. It's not exactly the way we just read it. The Gemara is going to adjust this. Tanya, son in a brisa. Amar lehen Rabbi Yehuda lachachamim. Rabbi Yehuda says, I also know that the way that I was suggesting, that you put his head on a block and you chop it off with a what's it called, like a cleaver or something, with a big like a guillotine, but the guillotine would come down. This was you had the knife in your hand. I also know that that's not that's a disgrace. It's a disgusting way. What are my options? Torah says that you're not allowed to go in the ways of the Goyim. And doing that would be chopping off someone's head while he's standing up with a sword would be in the ways of the Goyim.
Even if it's something that the Goyim.
One second. Rabbanan, what do the Rabbanan say? Even the Ksiv Saif Bayraisa, since the Torah says that you have to kill with the sword, and we're not learning it from them. The Torah preceded them. This is we're following the Torah. If you don't say this, this is what it says in the Brisa. It says that after a king passes away, you take all his utensils and everything and you burn it. No one else is going to use it, and you burn it. But this doesn't have to do with superstitions of the Mairi. Doesn't have to do with that. It's just something that was done for respect for the kings. Now, how are we allowed to do this? If the Mairi did it, then we shouldn't be allowed to do it. So how are we allowed to do it? So the Gemara responds to this. The Gemara says, but since the Torah says the Ksiv, the Kibbutz Ksiv straight for Bayrai, since the Torah talks about burning, the Ksiv misarafais avisecha v'gaimer leiminau kagamrinan. It's talking about Tzidkiyahu there, where he's being told that he's going to die in peace, and in the way that they burnt the articles for his fathers, that's how they're going to burn for him as well. No, he's going to die as a king. Well, you see that it's written in the Torah, and we still do this. because the Torah precedes the ways of the Goyim. This raises a big question. The concern over here is that something that the non-Jews do for us becomes prohibited. I remember there was this interesting tshuva in sefer called Shari Raimi, where they wanted to set up a bell for the shul in Rome, and he was discussing if you're allowed to have a shul bell, because the churches have bells, and his response was, he said, "What if they're allowed to come on time? If they come on time, then it means that the shuls aren't allowed to come on time, because the goyim come on time." So and then he used the Marik. The Marik's opinion is that Chukasim L'Silecha only applies to matters of modesty and idolatry. If there's any association with immodesty or idolatry, then you're not allowed to follow in that path. But other things like goyim wear pants, goyim wear, they wear a tie, right? Is that going to be goyish because goyim wear a tie? Or they wear socks?
But a bell in shul is pretty.
An alarm clock.
No,
So,
like Crown Heights is beautiful. There's nowhere near what Gentiles do.
they have an alarm right before Shabbos.
That's perfect.
But that's it's like a church bell.
Oh,
Why?
it's not a bell, it's an alarm.
Oh, because the different if they would
The sound is different.
let's say it
everything's
would do
different.
okay, so let's say it would be a bell. You'd say it would be prohibited if
No,
they would make a bell,
That would be weird.
but is it prohibited?
I don't-
Okay, so that's the question. Anyway, so it says to Saif, it says the sword in the Torah, so we're not learning from them, this precedes them. What Tosfos points out that 1 second, our discussion in the Mishnah between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim wasn't about Chukasem Leisilecho. Our discussion was which way is more disgusting. Comes along the Brisa and says that it's about Chukasem Leisilecho. So the whole conversation in the Mishnah was not a real conversation, according to this. This is more disgusting. That's more disgusting. Anyway, Tosfos puts the two together. He says the reason why he called it disgusting was because he held that was Chukasem Leisilecho. The ways of the Goyim he was calling disgusting. It wasn't because the body collapses and the head goes rolling and that type of goriness. That's not what he meant. He meant disgusting because the Goyim do it. It's teaching the Mishnah. Yeah, that's what we're quoting here, not to follow the ways of the Gentiles. Okay, and was taught in the other chapter. That means further on. Eloina Neragin. These are the bonds that are going to be killed by the sword. Haritzayach, someone that murders. Vanchiani Dachas, and the members, the town where that was serving idols. Bishlamani Dachas Ksivul Ficharib. Okay, I understand why the Erni Dachas gets killed by the sword, because it says by the sword. And how do we know that the Ritzayach, that the murderer is killed by the sword? The Tanya was taught in a brisa. Nakim Yunakim. It says that you have to carry out the punishment for someone that kills a slave. Very interesting. If a free man kills a non-Jewish slave, there's a death penalty for that from the free man. If he dies within 1 or 2 days, right? But if he dies, there's a death penalty. Rashi points out, why is there a death penalty on him? He's a slave. He says, well, he has some commandments, just like a woman has commandments, which is interesting. That's the reason why. Anyway, how do we know that there's a death penalty? How do we know what the death penalty is? We're going to discuss now. The Tanya was taught in the Brisa, Nakim Yunakim, that if someone kills the slave, that you take revenge on him. I don't know what this means, that you take revenge. when it says in the Teicha that I'll bring on you a vengeful sword that takes revenge for the covenant, you see, we associated this revenge together with the sword. That means that the murderer is gonna get killed by the sword. The Gemara says, how do you know getting killed by the sword means you chop his head off? Maybe baris mivras, maybe it means you stab him. Call that impale, right? Well, it says lefi charav ksiv. It says by the edge of the sword. Lefi charav means the edge of the sword, not by the tip of the sword. The edge of the sword would mean by the blade. Ve'ima davale gistra. Maybe it means you chop him in half. Cut him in the face. Oh, P means the face. The face, but over here it means the edge. David like gistra, that maybe means you just chop him in half. Gistra means a broken vessel, right? Broken, like a clay shard was called the gistra. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Avu, Amar Kav Ahavta L'Recha K'maycha. It says you should love your fellow as yourself. Even when it comes to the death penalty, you have to choose the most kind death. Ashkan l'chat. We only find that if someone kills a slave, that he gets killed by the sword. How do we know if someone kills a free person, that he also gets killed by the sword? Maybe the halacha is different. What's the go? Why? Maybe you should get a more strict punishment. Well, I've kal v'chaymer. It's not a kal v'chaymer. Katel avda b'sayif parchayin b'chenek. That if he kills a slave, he gets a sword. But if he kills a free person, you should get a less of a penalty. Chenek is less. It's less. That makes sense according to the opinion that says chenek is more lenient. Chenek is strangulation. There's a machlekes between the Rabbanan and Reb Shimon. If chenek is more lenient, if strangulation is the most lenient, or if it's not, the Rabbanan say that it is. But the Reb Shimon said that hereg is more lenient. So according to Reb Shimon, that the sword would be for the slave, give a stricter one for if he kills a free person. Okay. Which is the opinion of Reb Shimon. What are we going to say about this? Maybe there's a different punishment for the Reitzayach. We learn it out from what was taught in the Braisa. This is by if they find a person that died between cities, and the elders go down and they measure which city it was, and then they have to take a calf, egla rufa, and they break the neck of the calf by that valley. It says you will remove the blood of the innocent from your midst. Hukshu kol shefchei damim legla rufa. You do a comparison here. Anyone that kills is compared now to the egla rufa. Malalam b'sayif minatzavar, just like by the egla rufa. How do they kill the calf? They use a sword. They use a knife, a sword, right? And they kill from the neck. Afkan b'sayif minatzavar. So too here they do from the they use a knife from the neck. The Gemara says 1 second. Over there they do it differently. Over there, it's not really a sword. Over there, it's like a cleaver, and they do the back of the neck. Over here, it's also this that knife, right? And they're going to do it from the back of the neck. This is the most common phrase here in Sanhedrin. Pasuk says, "You should love your fellow as yourself." You have to choose a kind death.
Is there some basis that leads them to compare this form of execution to the egla rufa? Or is it just that that's the only other time that something or someone is killed with a sword?
It's using the pasuk that says Tivar hadam anaki mikirbecha. That means it's associating the murderer with this Egla Rufa, which was also done out of because of a murder.
Tivar Hadam, you shall remove the blood of,
The innocent.
yeah, Vanaki. Hmm,
Which means you will stop murder.
yeah.
The way of stopping murder. Okay. So how did we get into that? Because we were talking about how do we know that killing a free person is also chenek? Not chenek, is also hereg. Someone that kills the punishment for a murder of a free person is going to be hereg. Okay. Next Mishnah, mitzvah sanachnakim, the mitzvah of strangulation, right? They would sink him into manure until his knees. And they would put, see, by the sreifa, it made more sense that they put him into this up until his knees, because they didn't want him to move. But over here, they're holding him by a rope, both sides. It's not. But there, they had to open his mouth and they had to pour in, so they didn't want him to be able to move. But over here, it's just the rope itself that's killing him. Nice and the kashal they put the strong rope inside the soft rope. And they wrap it around his neck. This witness, this is done by the witnesses, I think, right? But at least the stoning was. So this witness pulls from this side, and this one pulls from this side, until his soul departs.
All of them are done by the witness. The witnesses has to do it. Or is it just by the?
I'm not sure. I think it's the witnesses. In the translation, when it says this one pulls, do they add in a word?
Witness.
Add witness.
Okay. But if not, it would be an exception for Steve. The only one.
Yeah, it says Yad Hadim Tiv by Perishain Lamisa, which was by Skila. But I guess they learned that. Tanu Rabbanan, it was taught in the Brisa. The rabbis taught Ish is talking about adultery. Pasuk says Isha Sheyinafes Eishes Ish, a man that lives with a married woman. When it says Ish, a man that lives with a woman that's married to a man, so that man that's the paramour has to be an actual adult, prat lakata, not if he's a child. If he's a child, he's not going to get the death penalty. Now, what type of child are we talking about? There's two possibilities here. One possibility is that he's older than 9, and it's considered like an actual relations. And he's not going to get the death penalty because he's underage. Right? Other possibility is that he's under than 9. He's less than 9. I know he's under bar mitzvah, so he's not going to get the death penalty. But if he's under 9, then his relations isn't even considered a relations. It's not even considered that he did anything. Well, let's see. Why would we even think that we should kill someone that's under bar mitzvah? We need a pasuk to tell me. It's not doesn't go under any category. It's not. There's no.
Have the rebellious son. There's also 4 bar mitzvah. Just talking about maybe some over bar mitzvah.
The rebellious son was how old?
12.
12.
12.
That was a special halacha. That's a special halacha. That wouldn't relate to this. Here he's talking about someone violating Shabbos, someone that does a prohibition. You ever thought that we have a special pasuk that says that if he's before bar mitzvah, he doesn't get killed for violating Shabbos? No, not chayav for anything. So here on the side of my Gemara, I have a note that says that maybe we would think that because the woman is getting killed, and when it comes to an animal that lives with a man or a woman, so we always kill the animal as well because we don't want the animal walking around saying that this is the one that's whatever. Maybe we could have thought that the child is going to go under that category. He's going to be walking around. And we're going to say that we're going to view it like that. So comes the Torah and says no. That's one shot that they quote over here. Now, there's another possibility. Other possibility is that we're not talking about the man, the child get. Of course, the child doesn't get killed. We're talking about, does the woman get killed because of this child?
She would be put to death. He wouldn't.
Yeah, that's one way of reading this. This is very ambiguous. This doesn't tell me. There's a lot of possibilities of what this Gemara means.
But generally, wouldn't it be that both people?
Yeah. But here it seems that not. Okay. Let's go further in the Brisa. That lives with a married woman. This would exclude if it was not a woman married to a man, but a woman married to a boy. Now, what's the reason? What's the reason for this? It's not considered married. A boy doesn't have kedushin. A young girl could have kedushin if her father does it, but a young boy doesn't have kedushin. So if there's no kedushin, so then she's not married. Eishes reyeyu. Then the pasuk goes on. It says the wife of his fellow, of his friend, is coming to exclude if it's the wife of a kuti. It says acherim. I don't know. I wonder what it says in yours. They exclude. It also says a Gentile, not from another nation. Mais Yumas, he gets put to death. Now here, this is what we're looking for. How does he get put to death? Bechenek, with strangulation. So when it comes to adultery with a married woman, the death penalty is strangulation. You say that it's with strangulation. Maybe it's any of the other punishments that are said in the Torah. How do you know it's chenek? Amrit, it says like this: whenever the Torah says a punishment, we're not going to pull it to the more stricter one. We're going to always pull it to the more lenient one, right? So what's the most lenient? We're going to pull it to chenek, strangulation, which is the most lenient. Rabbi Yeshe, that's the words of Rabbi Yeshe. Rabbi Yonasan says, Rabbi Yonasan says, the reason why we're going lenient is not because we're going lenient. The reason why we're going lenient is because the Torah says death, and what that means is chenek. That's the default. And Rabbi explains Rabbi Yonasan. He says, Nemer misa b'dei shamayim and misa b'dei adam. It says a death penalty at the hands of heaven, and it says a death penalty at the hands of man by the court. Ma misa mu'er b'dei shamayim misa shem b'reishim. Just like the death penalty at the hands of heaven doesn't say that something comes out from heaven and a bullet comes out. It doesn't say that. It says he dies like there's no significance on the body. There's no mark on the body that he dies. He died like he died. Well,
yeah.
I'm sorry?
It seems that that's a better way to think of it than lenient. It
Right.
leaves the body intact inside and outside, so it's more kavodic.
Right. So also the most basic capital punishment would be that it doesn't leave a mark on the body. Is that where they got the electric chair from? If they do a lethal injection.
I think the electric chair will change body. It cooks it.
Okay, so that would be streifa. That would be more similar to streifa. Yeah, which is more severe, but it leaves the outside of the body intact. Streifa, right? You're not burning the body. You're pouring hot lead in the throat.
And this is from,
The chenek is the most lenient. Yeah. Ve'ima streifa, maybe it's streifa. Streifa also leaves the body intact. Midam rachmana baskayim b'streifa mechlal daha alav b'streifa. This is interesting. It's saying that adultery by a baskayan, if she happens to be married and she's a baskayan, then she gets streifa. Obviously, another woman does not get streifa. What does she get? Something else that leaves the body intact. It's not going to be hereg. It's not going to be stoning, because stoning probably breaks the bones. It must be that it's going to be chenek, strangulation. Okay, now on top of page Gimel it says Bishleim Rabbi Yonasan Kedem Parish Rabbi Taima. Rabbi Yonasan that said that the reason why it's chenek, Rabbi explained the reason for that. And he said that we're looking to do a comparison between the death penalty from heaven and the death penalty from man, and both of them should not leave a mark on the body. Elul Rabbi Yoshia. But according to Rabbi Yoshia, how does Rabbi Yoshia even know that there's a concept of chenek? Maybe there's only 3 punishments, and we're going to do the most lenient one, right? He says you go the most lenient. And the most lenient one here would be getting killed by the sword. How does he even know that there's a concept of a 4th punishment? Well, Amarava Arba Misas Kamar Gmirlo. Rava says that no, we have Allah Misina, that we have 4 punishments. So we're going to take from the 4, we're going to take the most lenient one. What about, we could have added more, right? Right? No, so we have only 4. Only 4. No, they could have done the lethal injection. The halach l'meishem misina is that these are the 4.
They had poisons.
Right. They have that Socrates. They gave him that cup to drink, right?
Hemlock.
Hemlock,
No, cedar wood, that's not poison.
right?
No, it's interesting here. The Rambam learns that there are 4 positive mitzvahs, one for each form of execution, and the Ramban learns there's just one, and the rest is detail.
Right.
Wow, that's interesting.
He wouldn't feel the need to find a 4th, I don't think.
The Rambam could use as a source the fact that the Gemara keeps saying mitzvah saneragim, mitzvah sanechnakim, mitzvah, that it's like a separate mitzvah.
Yeah.
That asking that it's all one mitzvah, he has to find 3 other mitzvahs.
That will replace that, make it 613. Yeah, it's a big discussion.
But the Ramban's basis for this is Viarta Harab Birkebecha.
Right.
That sentence. So you don't need all the rest of this analysis under his, I think, point of view.
Right. It all goes under the same category.
Yeah.
Interesting. The study of what's a separate mitzvah is like an independent study from everything else that we learn.
Yeah.
The Rishonim came up with this. I mean, it's based on the Gemara. Tayag mitzvahs nemar b'Torah. Amar Rab Smalai, the Gemara Makkos. It says there's Tayag mitzvahs in the Torah. You don't. I mean, if you want to learn, there's other theories that what was it called? He calls it the atomic theory of mitzvahs, where you have it's not that this mitzvah is number 1, this mitzvah is number 2, this mitzvah is number 3, but there's 613 concepts, and they could be overlapping with each other, and this, and it's made of components that things are made up, and then you drop the whole counting of the mitzvahs. But the Rishonim are busy counting mitzvahs, like which one goes under, which is number this, and if you have this one, then you can't have that one, and But it's an independent study. I know you can learn all of Shas and everything, and the counting of the mitzvahs doesn't have to be part of the.
Sefer mitzvahs is Has like an anonymous author.
No, the Rambam, the Sefer Mitzvah. Yeah.
Like Spark, wasn't Rambam, but it was.
No, he's not the first. I'm sorry? No, the Bahag was before, and the Rasag was before. But there is a mitzvah. There is a mitzvah in the Torah to know all the mitzvahs of the Torah. But then, I mean, it helps when you have a number and to say, okay, I'm up to 500 and something, and I'm almost there. It helps, but I'm not sure. Okay. I'm a Rav.
I have a book about where the 613 came from and the history of this whole idea.
Oh,
Unfortunately, I really haven't read it well enough to talk about it, but
is it an English book or a Hebrew
it
book?
is English.
It's about the background to the 613.
I think the Sefer I was thinking of was like, it's kind of like a chumash, but only takes out the mitzvahs of each portion.
Maybe the Sefer HaChinuch. That's what you're talking about. Yeah, Sefer HaChinuch. We believe it's Rabban Halevi, but I think it's been that's been disputed. Yeah. Yeah, he wrote it for his son. Okay, so I'm a Rav Amar Mises Gemara Gemila. The fact that there's four Mises is a tradition. Now the Gemara says, "My loy mipnei sheikala." The Gemara says, "Why? What did it mean? There was a machlekes here, Rabbi Yoshi and Rabbi Yonasan. Are we saying that we're choosing chenek when it says mais yumas? Are we doing that because that's the most lenient?" Rabbi Yoshi said, "Yeah," and Rabbi Yoshi said, "No." What's the explanation for that? The Gemara says, "Kamifli look the Reb Shimon Rabbanan." That's an old machlekes. The old machlekes is chenek the most lenient. Maybe hereg is the most lenient. So Rabbi Yonasan can't say that chenek is the most lenient. He's following Reb Shimon. That says that it's not the most lenient. But Rabbi Yoshi is saying yes, that it is the most lenient. Amalei Reb Zera la Abaya. Reb Zera asked Abaya the following question: Shar haneskolim deloik ksiv buskila the gamri me'avi yedeni b'may gamri b'may yumsu gamri or b'demei bum gamri. Okay. A lot of times in the Torah, it says that the person's put to death. It doesn't always spell it out that he gets burned, he gets stoned. It doesn't always spell it out. The sages understood what each death penalty is based on associating it with different mitzvahs. When it comes to skila, it says in the pasuk by Oiv and Yedoni, which are two types of magic. It says Mois Yumsu be'even yirgamoisam demeyam bum. They should be put to death. They stone him with rocks. His blood is in him. Okay, now from that pasuk, we learn out other mitzvahs, other violations that get the death penalty of stoning. So Reb Zera is asking Abaya, what wording of that pasuk are we using to associate the other ones together with Oiv and Yedoni to get skila? Is it the fact that it says Mois Yumasu, or is it the fact that it says Demeyim Bum? The blood is in them. They were stoned, the blood doesn't leave, the blood is in them. That could be a shot. It could also mean they're guilty. It could mean they're guilty. Okay. Well, Amalei b'dmeim bum gamri. Rabbi responds that they're learning from Demayim bum. It says over here Demayim, over there it says Demayim. That's how they're going to learn that the punishment in all those cases is going to be stoning. Diba Maisimasu, because if we learn it from Maisimasu, Diba Maisimasu Gamri, Demayim bum lamli. Why do we have to have that extra word of those words of the blood is in them? Elamai b'dmeim bum gamri. Elamai, what are you going to say that you learned from Demayim bum? Maisimasu lamli. Why do you have to say you have extra words now with they're put to death? You don't have to say that. That's also extra. Kidatanya. They said for that we have an answer. It says it's taught in the Brayse. The murderer is put to death. I would only know that he's put to death with the death penalty he's supposed to get, which we just learned was sayif, was hereg. Minai with the sword. If you can't put him to death this way, that you put him to death any other way, How do you know that? Talmud Leimer Mais Yumas Amak Mikol Makim. We learned from the pasuk Mais Yumas that he gets put to death any way that we able to, if for some reason we're not able to do it the prescribed way. Okay, so we're going to learn from Dmei and Bam that other mitzvahs in the Torah, other prohibitions are going to be skila, stoning. Amle Ravachim Idifti LeRavina. Ravachim Idifti says to Ravina, Viba Maisi Masagamri Maika Kashli. What was the problem? Why was Reb Zera concerned? Do we learn from this? Do we learn from that? What was going to come out? That, like, let's play it out. What would happen if we would actually learn from Maisi Masa? What would come out from that? Maika Kashli. Maybe his concern was that the punishment for adultery, which we said was chenek, would change to skila if we would learn from Maisi Masa, because over there it says Mais Yumas. Because maybe what would come out is if you learn from the words Mais Yumas, then adultery by a married a woman, which is chenek, would end up being skila. So the Gemara says, no, you wouldn't say that because midam rachman arusa beskila machal d'sola beskila. The fact that the Torah says that the betrothed woman gets skila, that must be because the married woman does not get skila. What would happen is that if someone hits his father and his mother, injures his father or his mother, he's supposed to get chenek. But because it says mais yumas, we would say that it's skila, because we learn mais yumas from Ayv and Yadayni, which is skila. If we don't learn from Demei and Bam, and we would change that punishment. Because we would end up learning from Ayv and Yadayni. The Gemara says, wait, well, 1 second. We have another mais yumas. We just came up with that mais yumas of the adulterer, right? That's going to be chenek. And we have another mais yumas of Ayv and Yadayni. But who's to say that you learn mais yumas by the one that hits his father and his mother, that it's going to be skila of Ayv and Yadayni? Maybe it's going to be mais yumas of adultery, and it's going to be chenek. The will probably go lenient. You don't take him to the more strict one, you take him to the more lenient. We'd end up with the same thing. So what's the problem? We had a problem with all the other references to ski, all the other prohibitions that have skila. We now have a problem. The iba maisu masu gamri. If we learn it from the words maisu masu, then not the gamri maybe we should really learn from Eishes Ish instead of from, because Eishes Ish is chenek, and that's the one that's more lenient. Okay, let's go a little further. So therefore, that the Gemara concludes, therefore we learn from Demei and Bam, not from Maisu Masu. Because Maisu Masu would leave us confused. Which one should we go? We would end up saying that you go to the more lenient one, which is chenek instead of skila. Okay, this mission is going to give me 18 prohibitions for yesterday's Rambam. I think 18 prohibitions of that incur the stoning punishment. The following are the ones that get stoned. Someone that lives with his mother, or he lives with his father's wife. It doesn't have to be his mother. It could mean his stepmother. If he lives with his daughter-in-law. If he lives with another male, right? Homosexuality. Or he lives with an animal. That's a man that lives with an animal. Or a woman that lives with a male animal. A megadif, someone that curses God. Someone that worships idols. Someone that gives his sons to the idol of Melech. Now, apparently, the Mishnah is not considering Melech idolatry. It's a behavior. If it was idolatry, then we already said idolatry. Bal oiv, this type of magic, the Yadaini, the other type of magic. I'm sorry. Why? Oh, it's not necessarily sacrificing. Could be sacrificing. It says that it's sacrificing.
Give your offspring to Molech.
And what happens? Okay, but it doesn't say that he's sacrificing this kid.
It seems.
No, because there's a machlekes if that's sacrifice.
Yeah.
V'yadaini and this other type of sorcery. Mechalal as a Shabbos on the violate Shabbos, we know that's the get stoned. Mekalal avivim. I look at this. If someone curses his father or his mother, he gets a worse punishment than if he injures his father and his mother. Rashi says, why is this? Rashi says,
Here they have using the name.
Rashi says, where did I see this? Just 1 second. Rashi says that he mentions God's name in vain.
Double. Not only is he cursing his parents. No.
Yeah, but mentioning God's name in vain is like, okay, so he said he said a bracha levatala. Okay, that's pretty serious, but that's this is quite heavy.
Using something for something like that.
No, but Rashi doesn't say for something not good. Rashi says Rashi says levatala. Rashi doesn't say for something not good. Is the word there in vain? Vain means for no reason.
Yeah, but here it says, like, in bold, it says, one who curses his father or mother, and then not bold, it says, using the name of God. So it's like,
Using the name of God. Okay. Now Rashi actually doesn't just say using the name of God. Rashi says he mentions God's name in vain. Yeah. Okay.
so it cannot be used. Yeah, the purpose of this person wanted, no, because basically Russia is saying it's just nothing.
No, he mentions God's name and not in it's just for no reason. So that itself, in other words, that's the problem. Of course, it wasn't a negative reason also, but Rashi's not building that up. Rashi's just saying that it was mentioned. Right? Abola Nara Marasa, someone that lives with a girl that was betrothed, a young girl. We said that that's stoning. Amesis Ramidiach, someone that convinces others to worship idols. He gets either it's the missionaries, right? Either it's one person or it's to a city, right? Mesis would be to an individual, Midiach is to a city. But Mechashiv, someone that does witchcraft, Ben Seirer and also that child, that's the wayward child. Abala aim. Now, okay, that was the 18. Abala aim, someone that lives with his mother, Chayvla Mishameim, and Mishamesh is out. There's 2 prohibitions there. And even though it's only 1 act, but we don't mean here that he's going to get killed twice. What we mean is that he's going to have to bring, if he's bringing a sacrifice, he's going to have to bring 2 sacrifices. It was like b'shogeg. How would it be b'shogeg? He didn't know who it was or something. But
So if someone's going to be executed, he has to bring carbonate also?
No. They were talking about there was no warning and something like this. He's not going to be executed. He thought that it was his wife, and it turned out that he went into the wrong room.
Okay.
All the hotel rooms looked the same.
Restitution.
Rabbi Yehuda says, the Gemara is going to discuss Rabbi Yehuda. Says he's only has to bring a punishment, a sacrifice for the mother, not for the father's wife. It's his father's wife. There's 2 problems. One is that it's his father's wife, and the other problem is that she's a married woman. Now Rashi points out that what the Gemara here the Mishnah says, whether the father's alive, whether the father's not alive, that doesn't mean that she's a married woman when the father's not alive. So it's only referring to the first statement that we said, that it's considered his father's wife, even if the father's not alive. In other words, that prohibition is a lifelong prohibition. Whether it's betrothed or whether it's marriage. Habal Kalasis only lives with the daughter-in-law. Mishum Kalasis Chai because of his daughter-in-law. Mishum Eishes Ish, and also because she's married. She's still considered a daughter-in-law even if the son died. Maybe she's even married to someone else, right? But she's still considered the daughter-in-law. That's a lifelong term. Bein Menayers and Bein Mensun, whether it's only betrothed or whether it's marriage. Okay, let's leave it over here for today.
Thank you.
Should we learn tonight?